is meeting with leaders in Poland to discuss the crisis in Ukraine. While a major aim of the trip is to present a united front against Russia's invasion, the visit comes one day after the Department of Defense rejected Poland's plan to give Soviet-era fighter jets to the United States to then give to Ukraine. NBC News correspondent Josh Letterman joins us now from the Polish capital of Warsaw. Josh, good morning. So some viewers may have just heard that and thought, what is that plan? What does that mean? It was this plan to transfer those jets to this U.S. base in Germany so that then essentially it was on the U.S. to pass them over to Ukraine. Is that whole plan officially dead? Is that not going to happen anymore, this transfer of these jets that Ukraine has asked for?
It was dead, and it was never alive to begin with, Savannah, according to the Pentagon, which says the idea of putting these planes in U.S. custody is a non-starter, not only because shipping them from a U.S. base in Germany to Ukraine could be seen by the Russians as directly implicating the United States military in a war with Russia, but also because of the logistical and, frankly, safety considerations around who would then fly them into Ukraine, given the fact that there are significant Russian anti-aircraft capabilities pretty much across the country of Ukraine right now, meaning if it was U.S. pilots flying those planes, they could potentially be shot down by the Russians. And so Harris, on her trip here to Poland, is going to have to smooth over this diplomatic rift that's opened between the U.S. and Poland. U.S. officials saying this is only a temporary glitch in the relationship, that basically the Poles were trying to help. They got a little ahead on their skis. They put forward a proposal that was not tenable as far as the U.S. is concerned, but that the security relationship and the NATO partnership is still very strong. Harris saying this earlier this morning when she met with Prime Minister Duda. Take a listen.
We will discuss many issues today, and it will include the ongoing commitment that the United States has to support of this region, including the people of Ukraine, that ranges from security assistance to humanitarian assistance.
And as we are speaking, Savannah, Harris is holding a news conference with the Polish leader where just seconds ago, she once again affirmed the U.S. commitment to NATO, to defending, as Harris put it, every inch of NATO territory, saying the U.S. takes its Article 5 commitments extremely seriously. She's also talking about these 2 Patriot missile batteries the U.S. is now putting into Poland, not to be used in Ukraine, to be used here in Poland to help them shoot down missiles if it were to ever come to that. But clearly the U.S. and Poland both hoping it will not come to that Putin's aggression will not extend beyond Ukraine. But Harris trying to send the message both here and in her next stop in Romania that the U.S. is very firmly committed to the defense of the alliance. Savannah?
Article 5, of course, being that clause that means that NATO countries are committed to defending each other. And that really is the issue here. Ukraine is not a NATO country, and therefore coming to their defense means direct involvement by NATO in terms of President Putin.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.